On March 17, 1981, Italian investigators entered properties linked to businessman Licio Gelli. They were not hunting a hidden government. They were following fugitive financier Michele Sindona. His banking empire had collapsed. Money had passed through institutions that concealed far more than they revealed. Then came the suitcase. Investigators opened it inside a textile company in Castiglione-Fibocchi. It held hundreds of names. The list identified 962 alleged members of Propaganda Due, better known as P2. Senior military officers appeared beside intelligence chiefs and police commanders. There were politicians, judges, bankers, industrialists, journalists, media executives. Some already possessed immense power. Others stood beside its machinery, near enough to redirect it, without entering public view. A membership list can deceive. Some denied joining. Others said they attended meetings without grasping the lodge's true nature. Yet the archive offered far more than names. It contained financial records, correspondence, organizational files, and a political program called the Plan for Democratic Rebirth. Its prose was bloodless, administrative. Its ambition was anything but. The plan proposed reshaping Italy from within. Newspapers would be influenced, organized labor weakened, the Constitution revised, authority compressed into a narrower political structure. That was the unnerving anomaly at the heart of P2. A supposed secret state had left behind its directory, and something perilously close to an instruction manual. P2 was not Licio Gelli's private invention. Its lineage stretched back to the 19th century. The Grand Orient of Italy maintained a lodge for men whose public positions made ordinary Masonic attendance difficult. It offered discreet affiliation to politicians, military officers, senior officials. Open membership could invite scrutiny or damage careers. Privacy was the point. That origin matters. P2 did not arrive with a manifesto or some theatrical plan to capture the Republic. It grew from an established culture of elite discretion. That culture could appear practical, even respectable. After the Second World War, the lodge was reorganized. Italy had abolished the monarchy. It had written a republican constitution and formally rejected fascism. Yet old systems do not vanish overnight. The bureaucracy and security services still contained men shaped by the previous order. So did the armed forces, business circles, conservative political networks. The Republic was new, its human machinery was not. Gelli understood this continuity with unusual clarity. By the late 1960s, he was organizing P2's membership and widening its reach. In 1970, he became its venerable master. Formal meetings often gave way to private introductions and personal arrangements. Many members never knew one another. That ignorance was useful. A conventional lodge creates fellowship. Gelli created compartments. In 1976, the Grand Orient formally suspended P2's activity amid mounting concern. But the network survived beyond ordinary oversight. By then, its secrecy had changed character. It was no longer ceremonial, it was operational. To understand how P2 grew, we first need to see the Italy that made room for it. Post-war Italy was a parliamentary democracy perched on a raw Cold War fault line. The Italian Communist Party became the largest communist party in Western Europe. It won millions of votes. It governed cities and regions. Its roots ran deep through trade unions and working-class communities. Across the divide stood Christian democracy. Business interest rallied there. So did conservative institutions and the Catholic establishment. The Atlantic Alliance had its own hard limit. Italy must remain inside the Western camp. Elections carried immense weight. So did the fear of an unacceptable result. By the late 1960s, political conflict had escaped parliament. Strikes shook the country. Students filled the streets. Police violence followed. Then came kidnappings, bombings, assassinations, attempted coups. Italy remembers this era as the years of lead. Far-left armed groups committed murders and abductions. Far-right extremists carried out attacks designed to seed panic and destabilize the state. Security agencies infiltrated both worlds, yet infiltration did not always bring control. Informants, provocateurs, extremists, state officials. They sometimes moved through the same shadows. This climate rewarded secret coordination. Every faction could point to a genuine threat. That threat became permission for extraordinary measures. P2 flourished inside the uncertainty. Its connections crossed ministries, armed services, finance, communications. Supporters could call it a shield against communism and disorder. Critics saw something more corrosive, an unelected system nested inside elected institutions. One question sat at the heart of the scandal. Was P2 defending the Republic, or quietly subverting it? Licio Gelli never resembled the familiar portrait of a political mastermind. He held no major elected office. He was no celebrated thinker, nor was he a magnetic public speaker. His influence came from something quieter: access. Gelli was born in 1919. He served as a fascist volunteer during the Spanish Civil War. Later, he maintained connections across wartime and post-war Italy's shifting political terrain. His biography held disputed episodes. Sudden reinventions, relationships crossed ideological lines. P2 eventually placed him at the center. There, he adopted the manner of a patient intermediary. Discreet, watchful, useful. He could connect a general with a financier, a publisher with a politician, even an intelligence officer with someone who officially did not exist. He accumulated information, favors, obligations. Membership offered proximity to useful people. Secrecy kept accountability at bay. Some members wanted promotion, others sought protection. Financing, privileged access. They needed no devotion to a grand conspiracy. Personal ambition could do the work. That may have been Gelli's sharpest insight. Institutions are rarely captured through universal faith in one hidden doctrine. They weaken through smaller bargains. One appointment, one confidential warning, one loan, one suppressed investigation, one friendly editor. P2's internal hierarchy strengthened Gelli's position. Members often communicated through him rather than with one another. He was more than the network center. He was its switchboard. Power reached Villa Wanda near Arezzo through private meetings and sealed correspondence. Almost none of it required a public speech. Political influence demands more than introductions. It needs money with speed, reach, and camouflage. The trail soon reaches Michele Sindona. During the 1960s and early 1970s, he built a formidable financial empire. Italian banks fed foreign companies. Offshore structures widened the web. So did institutions associated with the Vatican. Sindona presented himself as a brilliant modern financier. He cultivated politicians. His world blurred legitimate banking with political funding. Tax concealment met criminal capital. Then the structure buckled. Sophistication gave way to missing funds. Falsified accounts emerged. The losses were immense. In 1974, Franklin National Bank collapsed in the United States. It was among the largest American bank failures of its time. Sindona fled Italy. Later, he staged his own kidnapping. The deception sought to bend legal and political pressure around his case. He also had ties to Gelli and P2. Investigators tracing Sindona's network found payments. Coded relationships surfaced. So did efforts to influence officials handling his affairs. The financial trail eventually led magistrates Giuliano Turone and Gerardo Colombo to Gelli's properties in 1981. The breakthrough did not come from a grand inquiry into every rumor surrounding Italy's hidden power. It came through patient financial work, transactions, intermediaries, contradictions. That detail matters. P2 was not exposed by a defector with a theatrical confession. It surfaced because money leaves residue. Accounts refuse to balance. Documents endure. And eventually, someone opens the wrong suitcase. The financial trail did not end with Michele Sindona. Another institution pulled the scandal deeper into Italy's establishment, Banco Ambrosiano. Roberto Calvi stood at its center. Calvi was known as God's banker. The name reflected Ambrosiano's close relationship with the Institute for the Works of Religion, the Vatican Bank. Behind that relationship sat a maze of overseas companies. Guarantees crossed borders. Loans vanished into concealed ownership structures. Vast sums escaped ordinary supervision. Several offshore entities appeared designed to hold debt, obscure responsibility, and keep the real decision-makers hidden. Calvi was also a member of P2. He was hardly alone. The lodge included other influential figures across finance and government. That overlap did not prove P2 directed every Ambrosiano transaction, but it left a disturbing question. Were these relationships merely social, or did they offer protection? By then, the bank's foundations were cracking. In 1982, Banco Ambrosiano collapsed. The shortfall exceeded $1 billion. Calvi fled Italy. Days later, his body appeared beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London. He hung from scaffolding. Bricks filled his clothing. Cash remained in his pockets. British authorities initially treated the death as suicide. Later investigations concluded that Calvi had been killed. The identity of those responsible proved far harder to establish. His death invited relentless speculation. Masonic symbolism, organized crime, missing money, Vatican interests, political secrets. Some theories rest on fragments of evidence, others remain conjecture. The restrained conclusion is extraordinary enough. A major bank had failed. Its chairman belonged to P2. Its hidden financial network reached powerful institutions across national borders. Investigators kept encountering the same contradiction. Formal authority existed on paper. Actual control lived elsewhere. The P2 list exposed more than one political faction. Italians saw fragments of the state itself. Among its 962 names were the heads of all three principal intelligence services. Senior officers appeared from the Army and Navy. Others came from the Air Force and Carabinieri. The financial police were represented too. Parliamentarians appeared beside civil servants and magistrates. There were businessmen and publishers. There were journalists. Silvio Berlusconi's name was also listed. He was then a rising property and television entrepreneur. National politics still lay more than a decade ahead. The scale was startling. Yet numbers can counterfeit certainty. A name alone proved neither conduct nor knowledge nor intent. Some admitted membership, some denied it. Others described P2 as an ordinary Masonic association. They claimed no knowledge of any wider political design. The Parliamentary Commission later examined evidence that the recovered list might be incomplete. That uncertainty does not empty the list of meaning. It changes the question. The 962 had not gathered in one room to approve a single plan. That was never the central issue. A clandestine organization had recruited deep inside Italy's most sensitive institutions: intelligence, defense, law enforcement, finance, public information. These officials owed duties to the Republic. Their hidden affiliations created loyalties that citizens could neither see nor judge. Democracy can survive private clubs. It falters when secrecy becomes a hidden route to appointments and favors, or quiet coordination across the state. P2's danger rested less on unanimous obedience than selective availability. Not every listed person needed to act. Only the right names mattered, at the right moment. The membership list exposed P2's reach. The plan for democratic rebirth exposed its direction. It did not demand tanks in the streets, nor did it seek the immediate abolition of elections. It offered something slower. The plan sought to work through existing institutions and tilt power from within. Newspapers would be influenced through ownership and trusted allies. Trade unions would be divided. Political parties would be reorganized. The judiciary would undergo structural change. Executive power would grow. Parliamentary negotiation would shrink. The plan also proposed choosing reliable political figures and backing them with money. Absolute control was unnecessary. Strategic leverage over newspapers and broadcasting could reshape the arena where citizens made democratic choices. So could influence over appointments and party leadership. Some proposals echoed reforms already discussed openly by conservatives. They regarded post-war Italy as unstable and inefficient. That overlap gave defenders an alibi. They could dismiss the document as little more than a political memorandum. Yet context changes meaning. A constitutional proposal belongs to ordinary politics when Parliament debates it. Opponents challenge it. Voters deliver judgment. Place that same proposal inside a secret association of intelligence chiefs and commanders. Add bankers and media figures. Its character changes. The issue was not only what P2 wanted, it was the method. This is where the familiar image of a coup begins to deceive. No soldiers needed to seize a television station at dawn. Influence could shift gradually. Legal on the surface, secretly coordinated underneath, once embedded. It would be difficult to reverse. A quieter coup might never announce itself. P2's interest in the media was no side project. Governments can fall after a lost vote. Political systems can tilt for a quieter reason. Citizens lose control of the information behind that vote. By the late 1970s, the Rizzoli publishing group faced financial crisis and opaque restructuring. It owned Corriere della Sera, one of Italy's most influential newspapers. Money associated with Banco Ambrosiano became entangled with the company. So did figures linked to P2. Several senior figures around the publishing operation appeared on the lodge's membership list. Yet the newspaper did not become a crude propaganda sheet. That would have been obvious. And probably ineffective. Influence could work more quietly. Appointments could shape coverage. So could editorial priorities. Access mattered. Financing mattered. Certain subjects could simply be excluded. Readers might still receive accurate reports. They might never see the pressures behind them. Those pressures decided which stories gained prominence and which disappeared. The P2 plan discussed acquiring or directing newspapers. It also envisioned coordinated communication. The method was incremental. A publication did not need to print lies every day. At critical moments, it only needed to protect particular relationships. Later history complicates the picture. Silvio Berlusconi's name appeared on the P2 list. Years later, he built a dominant private television network. He eventually became prime minister. This sequence has fueled sweeping claims about continuity between P2 and his political ascent. Yet direct continuity remains difficult to prove. Chronology alone cannot establish command. Still, the overlap matters. P2 identified media ownership as a route to political power. It did so before private television transformed Italian public life. That was not prophecy, it was strategic observation. Any secret association with one intelligence officer would invite scrutiny. P2 held senior figures from across Italy's intelligence apparatus. Among them was General Giuseppe Santovito of SISMI, the military intelligence service. General Giulio Grassini belonged to SEISD, the domestic intelligence service. Then there was Prefect Federico Umberto D'Amato. He was a formidable security official with roots deep inside the state's information networks. Other members held command posts in the armed forces and police. The conflict was stark. Intelligence services are secretive by design. Their legitimacy rests on legal authority. It also depends on political oversight and an unbroken chain of responsibility. P2 ran a second chain through the first, private and concealed. It answered to no electorate. The practical advantages were plain. Intelligence officers could warn allies about investigations. They could access restricted files. They could protect associates or shape official reports. They could also place trusted people in strategic posts. But the evidence has limits. It does not prove one unified P2 command behind every intelligence failure. The archives remain incomplete. Testimonies conflict. Some records were destroyed or concealed. Others came from people with strong reasons to deceive. Responsible skepticism must cut both ways. Not every unresolved event in 1970s Italy was a P2 operation. That claim turns uncertainty into mythology. Yet calling P2 an eccentric social club is just as reckless. Its members included men entrusted with the Republic's most sensitive secrets. P2 did not need to command the entire intelligence system. Access was enough. Obstruction was enough. Selective coordination could do the rest. Inside secret institutions. Even limited disloyalty carries enormous weight. Outsiders rarely see the precise moment when official command gives way to private allegiance. The gravest allegations surrounding P2 reach into the political violence of the years of lead. They also demand the greatest caution. Italy endured attacks from several extremist movements. Piazza Fontana was bombed in 1969. The Italicus train followed in 1974. Then came Bologna railway station in 1980. These atrocities became symbols of a nation under assault. Investigations exposed links among neo-fascist militants. Clandestine groups also surfaced. So did intelligence personnel and officials who obstructed inquiries or promoted false accounts. From this turmoil came the term strategy of tension. It described violence or manipulated fear used to discredit opponents. The aim was political paralysis, sometimes authoritarian reaction. Evidence supports the existence of far-right terrorism. It also reveals repeated interference by elements within the security apparatus. Yet the record does not firmly establish one command center directing every attack. P2 figures still appear inside this murky landscape. General Pietro Musumeci and Colonel Giuseppe Belmonte were connected to military intelligence. Both were listed as P2 members. They were convicted for roles in planting false evidence designed to divert the Bologna investigation. Gelli was also convicted over efforts to mislead that inquiry. These convictions do not prove P2 ordered the bombing. They prove something narrower, and profoundly disturbing. Individuals tied to the lodge obstructed the search for truth after Italy's deadliest post-war terrorist attack. That distinction matters. It keeps uncertainty from hardening into denial. It also stops suspicion from masquerading as proof. The documented obstruction leaves a stark conclusion. Parts of the state were not merely failing to solve political violence. In specific cases, officials were actively pushing the truth further out of reach. The membership list became public. The scandal escaped the magistrates' offices and entered Parliament. Italy now confronted a bitter paradox. State institutions had to investigate a network already embedded inside them. Parliament appointed a commission under Tina Anselmi. She was a former resistance fighter and a Christian Democrat. She was also Italy's first female cabinet minister. The choice carried unusual weight. Anselmi had endured dictatorship and occupation. She had watched the republic take shape. She knew democracy need not be formally abolished. It could be hollowed out from within. The commission gathered documents and questioned witnesses. It traced organizational ties and examined the lodge's political program. Its final report rejected one convenient defense. P2 was not merely an irregular Masonic association. It was a subversive political organization. The commission described a conspiracy aimed at influencing constitutional institutions. That judgment mattered. It came from neither novelists nor activists. It did not emerge from foreign intelligence whispers. It came from Parliament itself. Yet the inquiry met fierce political resistance. Parties disputed the scale of the threat. They also fought over how far responsibility should reach. Some portrayed P2 as an isolated criminal distortion built around Gelli. Others saw evidence of something broader. Formal institutions had coexisted with hidden networks. In January 1982, Parliament dissolved P2 by law. The legislation also banned secret associations pursuing political aims through concealed structures. The law dismantled the organization on paper. It could not erase its relationships. Members had already served together. Money had moved. Careers had risen. Information had changed hands. A network can be abolished in an afternoon. Its habits endure. Licio Gelli met exposure as he had navigated much of his career, through movement, concealment, connections. After the scandal erupted, he left Italy. Swiss authorities arrested him in Geneva in 1982. He had tried to withdraw money using false documents. They confined him inside Champ d'Ollon prison. The secure facility should have ended his mobility. It did not. In August 1983, Gelli escaped. The episode looked almost too convenient. He stood accused of cultivating allies across military circles, intelligence networks, financial institutions. Yet suspicion is not proof. An escape alone cannot establish a coordinated rescue. Gelli had money. He had experience. He also had every reason to plan carefully. The result mattered more than the method. The central figure in one of Italy's greatest political scandals had slipped beyond immediate reach. Again. Gelli later surrendered in Switzerland and was eventually extradited. Courts spent years examining his role in financial crimes and the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano. They also considered efforts to obstruct investigations. The legal record became a thicket. Convictions, appeals, acquittals, revised judgments. Each addressed different allegations. That complexity nourished two competing myths. One cast Gelli as an omnipotent puppet master. The other made him a convenient villain for failures larger than any single lodge. Neither portrait is enough. Gelli possessed real power. But that power required established people who were willing to participate. He did not create Italy's political fractures. He did not invent its secret services or fragile banks. Nor did he create concentrated media ownership. He saw the weak points, then connected them. A switchboard means nothing if nobody calls. P2's story belongs to its members as much as the man who recorded their names. P2 was formally dissolved. Its records were investigated. Its name became an Italian byword for power, concealed behind official institutions. Yet the political conditions identified by the Lodge did not vanish. Italy's party system entered a profound crisis in the early 1990s. The Mani Pulite investigations exposed widespread illegal financing. Much of the post-war political establishment collapsed under the pressure. Christian democracy fell apart. The Socialist Party disintegrated. New parties emerged. So did political movements built around media power and personal leadership. Several later reforms echoed ideas within the Plan for Democratic Rebirth. Executive leadership grew stronger. Traditional party structures came under pressure. Union influence declined. Media ownership became increasingly concentrated. For some observers, the resemblance proves P2's program succeeded after the Lodge disappeared. It is a tempting conclusion, but it demands restraint. Many groups had publicly advocated similar reforms. Their motives varied. A proposal inside P2's plan did not make every later reform a covert P2 operation. Political systems often reach similar destinations through different routes. Economic change can push them there, so can public anger. Electoral calculation matters. Institutional failure does too. Still, the comparison cannot be waved away. The plan revealed an existing ambition among influential figures. Private media could reshape democracy. Executive authority could be expanded. Parties, unions, and other intermediary institutions could be weakened. Later, some of those changes became reality. Former P2 members and associates also remained active in business and public life. The strongest conclusion is not that P2 survived as an unbroken command structure. The evidence supports something subtler. The Lodge belonged to a durable political culture. In that culture, personal networks could outrun formal rules. Organizations disappear. Methods migrate. That is why the P2 affair still feels unresolved, long after its court proceedings ended. P2 is often cited as proof of an Italian deep state. The phrase has value. It loses that value once it becomes an excuse to stop thinking. P2 was not an unseen hand behind every event. Its members pursued rival interests. Operations faltered. Some allegations remain disputed. Later speculation has often outrun the evidence. Making Gelli the author of every modern Italian crisis turns history into mythology. Yet minimizing P2 creates another fiction. A clandestine lodge recruited senior figures across the military and intelligence services. It reached into the police, politics, finance, journalism, industry. Its leader cultivated ties with bankers. Their institutions later collapsed amid concealed transactions. Members of the wider network obstructed major investigations. Inside its archive sat a program for reshaping the Republic's constitutional and informational balance. A parliamentary commission officially judged P2 to be subversive. None of this needs ornament, nor invention. The deeper lesson is not that democracy is secretly counterfeit. It is that elections alone cannot sustain it. Democracy also requires visible loyalties, accountable institutions, independent information. It needs the power to identify the real decision makers. It must also reveal whose interest they serve. P2 worked inside the gap between formal structure and actual influence. Secrecy was not theatrical costume, it was an administrative advantage. That made P2 effective. It also keeps the story relevant. Most hidden networks leave historians with rumors, missing files, contradictory witnesses. P2 left those traces too, but it left something harder. Names, records, a plan. The mystery is not whether the blueprint existed. The harder question lies elsewhere. How ordinary did that blueprint seem to the people prepared to carry it out?